Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. I mean, up to the Minister's contribution, we were kind of torn between whether we should be laughing or crying over here with some of the contributions from the government benches. But I have to say some of the points made have been nauseating to the point of being obscene, because the propaganda that's been trotted out about Ireland being in recovery, a corner being turned, a statement almost that unless you're in utter deprivation and destitution, well then you're not really poor at all, you're grand, type of approach seems to be emanating from the government benches. And it's quite clear that you have no idea what it's like for people out there now, that even behind respectable doors in nice areas, people are losing sleep by not having the money and the fear of the unexpected event coming along that will knock them off track. People sick of managing, not being able to afford the luxury of maybe going out for a meal or whatever. And poverty isn't just about having an inadequate income. It's about a poverty of lost opportunity, of not being able to raise your children or spend time with them because you're so stressed out about money and so on. And it's not inevitable. It's not because some people are lazy or they're not clever enough, and it's not even that there isn't enough resources to go around. The reason why it exists is a deliberate consequence of a society where the wealth is owned and controlled by an ever-shrinking number of people who are becoming wealthier than ever before. These people control governments. That's obvious in countries like the United States, where the president and the cost of running means that they have to pay back their paymasters. It's obvious in countries like Britain, with excellent books like Owen Jones' The Establishment and How They Get Away with It. And it's the same in Ireland as well. And it is a consequence of neoliberal capitalism, absolutely unfettered, and it is bad for everyone. And I have to say, I find it an absolute affront that on a global scale, when we live in a world where resources are greater than at any time before, we have the prospect of our children being the first generation in decades to be poorer than us. I mean, how could that be? Things that people thought were a norm, the right to a roof over your head, which is denied to hundreds of children in Dublin here tonight, the right to health if you're sick, denied to Jerry Feeney from Raheny on the news tonight, who died in Beaumont Hospital 2 months ago in the most horrendous circumstances, the right to an education not there for traveller children, as we saw in the courts yesterday, a right to a pension not there for the thousands of Aer Lingus and Aer Rianta workers. And of course these things were never there forever in perpetuity anyway. They weren't given, they were fought for, and now the establishment is coming and using the economic crisis, which was not of our creation, to claw some of that back. And it is the race to the bottom. I mean, the idea of a secure, permanent, pensionable job is now put out there almost as a luxury. People who are in that situation go around in fear that someone's going to blame them. That was the sort of attack on the public service. Well, at least you have a job. What about the rest of them? The same type of approach we had from Deputy Mulhern, talking about hard-pressed middle-income families not being able to send their kids to college, and then saying, but all those ones on the dole can get a grant. It's divide and rule. The reason why things exist is that we've had a subsidisation of the rich on a global scale and a transfer of wealth, and the figures back that scenario up. I attended recently some very interesting talks hosted by Dr. Conor McCabe evaluating the Irish economy. I think it's interesting that Labour deputies are quoting John Fitzgerald and slating Michael Taft, who up until recently was a member of your party, but there you are. But he made the point that the government is funded by 3 categories: taxation, charges and fees, and borrowings. And of the tax element, 2/3 comes from income tax and VAT, which is shouldered in the main by workers. And what you've had is a transfer of wealth, tax breaks for the wealthy. Now, how are these paid for? They're funded by cuts in social services. The money that the wealthy save from that, they invest and earn interest in, and the government has to go and borrow money to subsidise and meet the shortfall of the economic crisis. I mean, you couldn't absolutely make this stuff up. And that's what's the background to this scenario. You know, you can doctor all the figures you like, But the reality is, it's not just about people being out of a job and give them a job and everything will be okay. The types of jobs now, half of the workforce earns €27,000 or less, and it's onto their shoulders that you're foisting extra charges like water charges, when there is an alternative and there is wealth there that can be taxed progressively in a meaningful way that would transform the living standards of ordinary people. That's not an inevitability, it's a political choice.
Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett.